A fanatic heart will ignore what it does not want to know. It will excuse even that which cannot be excused in the need to find someone to share its bitterness. Earlier this week, I finished Brothers of the Wind, a novella in the Last King of Osten Ard series by Tad Williams. And if you know anything about me, or my Osten Ard journey, then you know by now what I'm probably going to say. Another just absolutely fantastic addition to the Osten Ard world, another fantastic book by Tad Williams, and just further proof that Tad Williams is the best fantasy author currently working. This guy has time and time again proved to me that he's without the doubt the king of modern fantasy, at least in my opinion. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is my favorite fantasy trilogy of all time. I think it's better than Lord of the Rings, Mistborn, and any other that you can name. And Last King of Osten Ard is probably like my favorite continuation of a series I've ever read. This entire saga stands just among the giants of fantasy for me, and I think that it is one of my favorite series I've ever read. In fact, I would dare to say that it's my number 3. I think it's better than Malazan. I think it's better than Stormlight. I think it's better than Sun Eater. The only 2 series I like it more than, so far at least, is The Dark Tower and The Wheel of Time. So when I praise this series, it's not just me, just like, this is really great, guys. You gotta read. This is really high praise for me, guys. For this series to be in my top 3, I think you gotta really be doing something right. To be up there with Robert Jordan, my GOAT fantasy author, and Stephen King, my favorite author of all time, and their best series, that's an achievement. But Tad Williams absolutely deserves it. And Brothers of the Wind is no exception to that. So why should you read this story in particular? Well, do you like adventure stories? Do you like dragons? Do you like killing dragons? Do you like, do you like to maybe sometimes read a perspective that isn't human for once in a fantasy series? Well, that's what Brothers of the Wind provides. This is a first-person perspective of a servant for the brother Hakatree, who is this very famous Scythy character. He's also brothers with the main antagonist of the original trilogy, Inaluki. And we see them before, Inaluki obviously turns evil, as they go out to hunt this dragon, which is destroying a local human settlement and threatens to destroy a Scythy settlement. And we just kind of see them go out on this adventure to hunt down this giant worm, is the term that they use for dragons in Osten Ard, this giant worm. And kind of what leads up to that event, the hunt itself, and the tragedy that occurs after the hunt. Because it wouldn't be an Osten Ard story without a little bit of tragedy. And that is something that Tad Williams does very well. This is very much an adventure story with a Shakespearean twist. And we get to just kind of see the fallout of the decisions made by these 2 brothers and how arrogance and pride can basically bring about almost the end of the world in the very long view, and how certain individuals can just have some extreme implications on history if they gain the proper amount of power. If this happens to them, then these events happen to them. If this event didn't happen to them, then these events wouldn't have happened. And I really think that this is for people who they like to get in the head of these larger than life characters. This will definitely be more for people who have already read Osten Ard, especially Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Not to say that those who who haven't won't enjoy this, but it explains so much of the background to these very important characters. It explains so much about the lore of the Scythe and their servants, these kind of navigators' children as they're called, and where they come from and all those kinds of things. There's a lot of world building here. There's a bunch of kind of explaining of these different factions and how they came about. And it really explains this relationship that Hacktree and Inaluki had as these two brothers who absolutely loved one another, and how one's pride brought down another, and the result of that. So this is definitely for people who kind of like that Shakespearean feeling tragedy. It kind of, not exactly, but it kind of reminds me of something like Hamlet or Othello, where it's like this one person did this one thing, so all these other horrible repercussions must happen to these set of characters. And it's a very sad story. This is not like have a happy ending. It is deeply sad, but it's also just incredibly moving, and it's got just a ton of incredible character moments, incredible character writing, incredible world building, some great action set pieces, and it's relatively short for Tad Williams. I mean, this guy usually writes like 6, 7, 1,300-page books. So for Tad Williams, it's pretty short. It's paced pretty well, in my opinion, at least for Williams. This is no Red Rising or anything like that. This is not a quick book, but it's paced very well, and it's very melancholic in its feeling, because it's somebody recounting all these events in their life, and kind of these two other very larger than life characters, and what happened to them, and why they turned up the way they did, and it explains so much about why Osten Ard turned out the way it did. So this is definitely for people who already are invested in Osten Ard, but I will also say, I think as long as you're okay with being mildly confused, this might even be a good jumping in point, because like it's almost entirely independent of the other books. You don't really need to know who these characters are, and it gives you kind of a good sampling of how Tad Williams writes, but only in the, if instead of third person, we change to first person. And I think it'll give you like a good idea of like what to expect from the series and the general tone, because it's not like a grimdark series, but it's also not like a super happy, like, oh, everything's going to turn out great series. It kind of strikes that balance between something like Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire, where it's got some very hopeful moments and it's got some very cynical moments, but it's incredibly well realized, and this was just another absolute delight to read. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10, and if you haven't started Osten Ard yet, and it's been like on your TBR, let me just be the one to tell you, you should go and read it, because it's one of the best fantasy series of all time, and Brothers of the Wind is just an exceptional addition to that fact.